What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the juice. So this is the juice from Lake Guntersville, stage 4 on the Major League Fishing Bass Pro Tour. So the juice is going to be my recap video where we dive in and go through the patterns, the baits, rods, reels, line, all the equipment, the juice that I used to finish 5th place at Lake Guntersville. It's been a great season so far. We're sitting in 5th place in the points. Can't complain at all. And hopefully you guys are enjoying these juice videos. And I know some of you guys are, because I see you clicking the links in the description down below and buying the tackle that I'm using. So I appreciate you guys doing all that. So if you guys are new to the channel, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. And like I just mentioned, check out the description down below for direct links for all the tackle, all the equipment, rods, reels, line, all that, direct links right to fishusa.com. They have all this tackle in stock, ready to ship, and they'll get it to you in a hurry. So heading into Guntersville, you know, it's middle of May. I know those fish are starting to move out to the ledges. You know, most of them are done spawning. They're moving out to the river ledges, and they get into these big groups and big schools of fish. You know, it definitely helped that we fished a pro circuit event last year, basically about the same week. So had a pretty good idea of the sections of the lake I wanted to focus on to find these groups of fish, and had a good idea of baits, patterns, and equipment that I needed going into it. So I was pretty well committed to doing that both days of practice, 2 days of practice. And I pretty much spent a bunch of time behind the wheel, idling here with my Lowrance units, looking for the fish. I didn't really fish as much during practice. You know, spent a lot of time looking. I would stand up and fish a little bit, catch 1 or 2 just to get some confidence in it. But most of the time was looking for those areas where the fish were. And then basically once the tournament started is when I started kind of dialing in baits and how to catch them. So to start the tournament, I had a bunch of rods out. You know, I think we counted 21 rods laid out all over the front and the back deck. We had rods laid out everywhere. Like I said, with just a bunch of different options, because those fish are a little bit tricky to catch. You know, there'd be a bunch of them there, but they're really tricky to get to bite. They see a bunch of baits, they're highly pressured, and then once you catch 1 or 2 on one bait, you're gonna have to switch up and show them something different to keep those fish biting and get some more bites. So that's why I had so many different rods out. I'm not gonna dive into all of them just because I had so many out. I'm gonna give you the key baits, the key rods and reels that I caught, you know, the bulk of the fish that I weighed in throughout the tournament, and what I caught the big fish on. So day 1 of the tournament, I actually weighed in 30 pounds, 9 ounces. So I had a fairly slow morning and really most of the day. And then in about a 20-minute span, I got 1 school of fish fired up, and I caught 30 pounds, 9 ounces of bass. And the bulk of that came on this right here. It's just a big white hair jig. You know, that's a staple on the Tennessee River lakes. Big ones eat it, and that's one of my favorite bites whenever they eat that hair jig. It is so much fun, and I love catching them on that. So I was throwing him on the favorite Hex 7'8" medium, or no, 7'8" heavy. So this is the Mark Daniels Jr. Signature Series rod. It's a big, heavy flipping rod, but I wanted a really long rod for long cast with this big hair jig. And then when I did hook a big fish, I wanted a very powerful flipping rod that I could handle those big fish. So I went with that rod right there. 15-pound Seaguar and VizX fluorocarbon on there just to help with those long casts. And then the retrieve on the hair jig's pretty simple. You let it sink to the bottom, give it a few cranks so it pops up, and then as it's gliding back down is usually when you get that bite. So very easy, very standard Tennessee River bait right there. Next up, going along with that, another big bait to target big fish was just a big Flutter Spoon. This one right here kind of has 3 hooks down the side just in case they swipe at it. But this right here, big heavy Flutter Spoon, just imitates those dying bait fish, whether they're down there schooling and they're attacking them and they're dying, so they're fluttering down. That's what the spoon imitates very well. Was throwing the spoon on the favorite Pro series. So this is actually the Andy Morgan Signature Series rod, the GOAT rod. It's a 7.6 heavy Pro Series rod, and I'm throwing him on 20-pound Seaguar Tatsu fluorocarbon. So I wanted heavy line for this because it's such a heavy bait, big hooks, and whenever you hook one, you just pretty much wrench them in the boat as fast as you can, because the spoon gives them a lot of leverage, and you want to just get him in the boat as soon as you can so you don't lose that fish. But the spoon caught quite a few key fish throughout the week, just throwing big baits. So next up, we had 2 crankbaits. So really we had a bunch of deep diving crankbaits. You know, a deep diving crankbait is just a staple for on these ledges. I had 2 different options here. I think I had 3 or 4 more options out on the deck. I had, you know, 6 or 7 crankbaits out on the deck every day just to give them different options, different sounds, different colors, that kind of stuff. But the rod was really the key part to the crankbait. You know, I never really found one crankbait that was better than the other. It was really all about just giving them those different sounds and different vibrations, just repetitive casts through the same area, and eventually one of them would trigger them and get them fired up. But like I mentioned, the rod was the key part. So I got 2 different rods here, same line. So this is the favorite Phantom Fat Glass Cranking Series rod. This is the 7'4" medium heavy, and this one over here is the 7'6" heavy. So this is for your extremely deep, big, heavy crankbaits, and this one is for your little bit shallower ones. This one doesn't handle those real heavy baits as well as the 7.6 heavy, so that's kind of why I switched these up here. But throwing all the crankbaits on 12-pound Seaguar and VizX fluorocarbon, and then a real big key for me was a little bit faster gear ratio than you would throw your crankbaits on. You know, I went with a 7.1 to 1 gear ratio, 7.3 to 1, somewhere in that 7 range on your retrieve, just so you could get that bait moving a little bit faster. It gets it down deeper quicker. Now it definitely wears out your arm cranking harder, but I wanted that bait moving pretty fast, just so they would have to react to it and get it down through those fish. So like I said, we had 3 or 4 of each of these setups out on the deck with different baits and different crankbaits, and the crankbaits definitely put in a lot of key fish throughout the week. Lastly, which if you guys know me, this is not me at all, but I was throwing a Carolina rig. It killed me to throw a Carolina rig and fish that slow, but it really caught probably the most key fish for me throughout the week was the Carolina rig. So was throwing a 1/2 ounce Epic Tungsten barrel weight. That's a perfect Carolina rig weight. Putting a couple beads on there to a swivel, and then coming down here to the business end, we got a Trocar TK 100, just a worm hook right there, 5/0 size, and then just an old school, one of the most famed baits is just a brush hog. Putting that on the back of my Carolina rig, and like I mentioned, that caught probably the most fish out of one single bait this whole week. Throwing the whole rig on 15-pound Seaguar Tatsu fluorocarbon. So I just ran straight 15-pound from my reel to the swivel, and then the same line to the hook, just straight fluorocarbon the entire way. Throwing that on the favorite Hex 7.6 heavy. You guys know that's my dragon rod. Anytime I'm throwing anything on the bottom, dragging a jig, a Carolina rig, a worm, anything like that, I'm going with that rod right there. And they got the job done. So some other key mentions, you know, I caught a few key fish, finesse fishing with a Yamamoto 5-inch cut-tail worm, Nico rigged, especially on the final day, the 4th day. It got sunny and slick, and the fish were extremely pressured, so I picked up that finesse presentation, was able to catch a few key fish on that. Let's see, what else did I catch some fish on? I did catch a couple on a jerkbait. You know, you always catch a couple fish on a jerkbait, especially when they're feeding on bait fish. It's hard to beat a jerkbait, but other than that, I can't think of anything that really jumps out at me. Just a bunch of duplicates of the baits we had here. You know, the drop shot always catches some fish down there, but That's pretty much it, guys. That's the baits that got it done at Guntersville for a 5th place finish. Super excited with how that event went. You know, that was one of the ones that I was worried about the most this year. So happy to get through there with a great finish. And now we're heading up north for the rest of the season. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that we can keep this momentum rolling and finish out the season strong. So appreciate you guys watching this video. Leave me those likes and comments down below. Don't forget, check the description down below for links to all this tackle. And we'll see you guys next time.